We'll wait for 2 more minutes. Let more people join. Good morning. Hello. Good morning to you all. Are you able to hear
Yes,
me?
sir.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Yes, sir.
And are you able to see the slide?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Good. Today, we will try to understand the basic concepts of marketing. And before getting into the concepts, it is necessary for us to understand a little about the needs and wants. Okay? And in that particular context, I have to take you to the first unit of motivation. The first unit, a part of it that leads to understanding behavior, which is a part of the behavioral school of thought, management thought. We'll be touching upon this. Basically, management has been defined or understood for the sake of convenience based on certain functions that the managers perform in order to improve the effectiveness or the efficacy of an organization. And these functions are basically planning, organizing, directing, coordinating, and control. Or sometimes, based on the semantic differences, they also say leading, coordinating, communicating, reporting, budgeting. Certain other functions are also reported, but such sort of differences exist only because of the semantic differences that exist from the people who have contributed to the thought on management, right? Whatever it is, basically we have been thinking of performing management by various, by coordinating and controlling various resources at hand. Of all these resources, we have also seemed to have realized over the period of time that human resource is one major resource that determines the effectiveness of what all actions that we take. In that particular context, going back to about 1927.
Sir, please start recording, sir.
Sorry. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, now the recording is also on. Thank you. As I was mentioning, of all the resources that are at hand for us within an organization, within the concept of management as such, human resource seems to be one of the major aspect because this particular resource seems to be so very unique. In the sense, it can determine the effectiveness and efficacy of all the other resources as well. Particularly, human behavior or human motivation is something that can, if one is motivated by himself, his commitment, his passion to work, and the quality of work that is delivered is something much, much better, and his productivity is even higher. And once he is motivated or the person is motivated, he can see to it that the other factors of production can also be made use of in a most effective manner. That means to say, to improve the quality, to improve the process that we have been working with, and to make this process much more efficient by reducing the accidents that are likely to take place, causing not only damage to the machinery and raw materials, but also to the humans who may be laid off for a while because of the sickness or the accidents that take place. So we can avoid so much of redundant, not so necessary activities, which would hurt the productivity of an organization. So in that particular sense, if individuals as humans are motivated, then probably the efficacy of an organization is likely to be much, much better. In that particular context, we have to understand something about the human behavior. So when we are trying to get into marketing, it is also important for us to understand what these human beings are, why do we behave the way we behave, sort of questions, they do occur. I have come up with a few slides for you, wherein we defined marketing as flow of goods or activities which help the flow of goods or services from from producer to that of consumer. And we also thought it is not just necessary to facilitate only flow of goods, but also to identify the needs and wants so as to satisfy through the exchange process. So we have come up with certain definitions. We also said that some people have even recognized that marketing should be, in fact, selling should be superfluous. And that's what intention of marketing is. So somebody is trying to inform that the objective of marketing is not just selling, but there is some difference between selling and marketing. So we try to distinguish between what marketing and selling could be, wherein we said, well, marketing is pulling the customers to us, selling happens to be pushing the customers towards the market. And in that sense, we also spoke of the importance of marketing and the various features of it. Now, like it facilitates specialization, widens the market, and improves the standard of living of the society in general. Whereas, it also helps to improve the economic growth and creates new norms, new habits, new attitudes, and the socio-economic behavior as well. And the rest of the things go on. Now, having said this, now I wish to take you to the marketing concepts. The marketing concept is something like this. It starts off with needs, wants, and demands. It is a social process, okay? And we're having identified these needs, wants, and there existing some demand for those, then we try to come up with certain offerings, which could be products or services or even certain experiences as such, which probably create value for the customers, create value for the people who are in need, who want them, right? And based on such sort of value that we have created, it also generates certain levels of satisfaction. So this satisfaction level would probably decide the progress of the business, the success of the business, and the effectiveness of the marketing program that we take up. And this leads to, when there are people who are satisfied, naturally there are transactions taking place and relationships being built, and finally the markets flourish. So we wish to discuss these matters today about the basic concepts, trying to understand what these things are. And in this process, let us try to understand that marketing, we accept it to be a social process in which individuals and groups obtain what they need and want by creating and offering, exchanging products and services of value freely with others, right? So this is an understanding with which we are starting. And now we wish to come to a little bit on the behavioral front, where we try to understand what motivation is and why we behave the way we behave. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Pardon me?
Yes, sir,
Yes,
you
sir,
are
you are
audible.
audible.
Very good. I am switching off the video mode. Yeah. Can you see the slide?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. As we understand, every individual, as an individual, we all
Sir.
act in a very distinct manner. And we as people act differently. And we are trying to answer a question, why do we do that? And what do we do? Why do we do for what sake? Why do we behave the way we behave is the basic question that we are trying to answer. And probably the answer lies considerably in the explanation of the process called motivation. Motivation is the building block, basic building block of human action, which needs to be studied and understood. understanding this behavior will help us to prevail and sustain the vagaries of the society and the challenges and competition within the society that exists and that we are likely to face. Okay? And studies on this motivation can probably be understood. One from the point of view of motivating self, and the other from motivating others. So, as a manager, as a leader, we should also be trying to not only motivate ourselves, but also trying to motivate people who are reporting to us, people who are responsible for actions within an organization, which as an individual we have limited possibilities. But when in a group, because of the limitations that we have, we try to overcome our limitations by working in teams and groups. The purpose of a group or a team is to overcome. All alone, we are very weak, probably. We have certain challenges to be faced, and we are not equipped enough to face all such challenges. In that sense, we have a possibility of forming teams and groups with others who are in the same level or plane of thinking. And in this sense, if we are able to team up with others, probably the collective effort would yield better results than the individual effort. So team spirit happens to be one such sort of a very important aspect in life as we grow in our careers as well. Please do realize this. Having said this, but motivating self is also very important. Many a times we see ups and downs in our life. We face tensions, we face depression. Many a times we face difficult situations. We feel lost. And these are situations where we have to overcome and we have to fight it out. Basically, all this, as you see from the circuit that I have been trying to show, the first one happens to be the inner state of disequilibrium. When we have certain needs which are not satisfied, when we have desires, when we have expectations, and all these things with some such sort of anticipation of our performance, of something happening positively for us, it all builds up that sort of a tension. And the progress of it might lead to a depression sort of a situation or being delighted. So this sort of a situation creates disequilibrium in individuals. So that disturbs our mentality, and as an individual, we feel lost, right? So this is the sort of disequilibrium which creates some such sort of an action or a behavior within us, because we believe that some course of action would reduce this disequilibrium. Every one of us have our own thoughts of minimizing this disequilibrium. None of us can tolerate this sort of unstableness for a long period of time. So if we are to face such sort of situations for a long period of time, probably our health, our mental health would also be affected. Therefore, our body itself says, bring this to an equilibrium state. So we try to take action that would help us to minimize this. So that is called the action or the behavior. Why we behave is in search of reducing this disequilibrium or improving the possibility of satisfying our expectations, our desires, and meeting the anticipation that we have made for ourselves. Having done this, as you progress with your activity, you have a feeling, and at times you have certain accomplishments or certain deterrents that will block you. So those seem to be either, trying to give you further guidance about how to achieve. And this sort of punishment or some such sort of a reward will be a goal or an incentive for us. Having received one such sort of an incentive, we are encouraged to perform more actions in this particular direction. But if it is deterrent to our own action, activity, or our own objectives, probably we modify. So we have a modifying feedback circuit as well, where having understood the purpose of our action and the course of action leading to a particular activity, we would try to understand whether we will be able to achieve what we have desired or not. And if we are not in the level of expectation that we wish to have, then we modify our own behavior or our own actions. So this is the inner state. We are trying to modify our inner state. Then again, a reduced disequilibrium because of some course of action taking place. So this sort of a cycle goes on within us. And always try to remember that sort of course of action is always necessary. And many a times we have plans, but plans are never organized. Unless we have taken up some activity, we would not be able to establish whether these activities are really organized, planned to an extent that we would be reaching our goal, right? So many a times we think in the evening and forget after a sleep. In the morning again we get into our routine course and the routine activities and forget the objectives, the plans, the ideas that we have generated and our own introspection that we had last evening. So this is the course of things that happen. Having said this, is that okay? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Did I make this clear?
Yes.
Yeah, the basic idea here, motivation, as I was mentioning to you, the theories of motivation are based on the fact that behavior is essentially purposeful. Our behavior is basically purposeful and is always directed towards some sort of a goal and some sort of attainment of a goal. Then this concept of motive, actually, the motive is the word. It came from Latin, which says motin is to move. Motive is to move. And in that particular sense, the concept, the purpose of underlying all goal-directed actions is called the motive. The purpose behind all goal-directed actions is called the motive. And all motives may not be of equal importance. Sometimes we do understand some are very important for us, some are not. And particularly in the context of a goal, their importance may also vary. So we have to understand. So sometimes we ignore some of the activities that we take up, and sometimes, some of those things we emphasize a lot. However, when we talk about this motivation, basically motivation, as I could also show you the other circuit. Firstly, we identify the needs, then search for ways to satisfy these needs, get engaged in goal-directed behavior. We feel that taking this particular action in this particular direction would probably we would be able to achieve the goal, and that we probably implement, perform, and receive some such sort of a reward or a punishment, so that we would be able to reassess our course of action and identify the deficiencies in our plan and modify accordingly. So this thing goes in a cyclic process, as we were discussing. So having said this, basically motivation happens to be an inner state that energizes and directs or channelizes our behavior towards the goal. Okay, it is an inner urge within the individual, and to incite or to create a desire to do things, to create willingness to work in a manner in which we want to work, which we want work to be done. Okay. So from the circuit that we have seen, we have to realize that there are three different aspects of motivation. Firstly, motivation or behavior is caused. It is need-based. And behavior is motivated. It is being driven by the instabilities, anticipations, expectations that we have. And behavior is goal-directed. You have a purpose in mind. Therefore, behavior is goal-directed. So these three we have to understand. Behavior is caused, behavior is motivated, and behavior is goal-directed. So it is always necessary for us from our younger days to have a goal in mind for every activity that we take up. That is very essential, because unless you have a plan, there cannot be a control activity. So planning and controlling go together. Similarly, goal and performance also go together. Whether you have been able to accomplish something or not depends upon the goal we decide for ourselves. So please make note of this. And in our personal life as well, these matters do play an important role. And objectives of motivation is motivation ensures productive use of resources. Motivation increases productivity. Motivated employees become quality conscious. And motivation promotes goal-directed behavior. Motivation helps organizational stability and friendly culture. So the importance of motivation as a part of organization management as such is this. Having said this, let me also show you the psychological process we have just discussed, and the set of forces that cause people to behave in a set of in certain ways can be understood. Firstly, when we are talking about motivation, we said motivating self and motivating others. So we are also to understand something called intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is a behavior we perform for our own sake. That means it comes from within. It is an urge. We are directed, we are pushed by our own self to perform particular activity. And extrinsic is something being forced. In the sense, it is motivated by external factors. Behavior performed for rewards, sort of a thing. Say, for example, when we were children, Mummy would have told us, you do this, you get a chocolate, right? What is this? What sort of a motivation is this?
Extrinsic.
Extrinsic motivation.
Naturally extrinsic. And sometimes all of us are in the class, but some of us perform better. Some of us probably are ranked. Why do we do this? With whom are we competing? What is competition? Do you understand competition? Hello? Do you understand competition?
Yes, sir. Competition is basically trying to get an edge over others.
Yeah. Any other concept? Okay. Any other concept?
To prove your unicity.
Say it again, please.
To prove your unicity, we do hard work to prove our unicity.
Yes. So
Actually, competition is
trying to improve ourselves by taking others as the reason.
Okay. So you make use of others as a benchmark or as a measure, right? So when we talk about competition, we have to realize there are two sets of competition. One is competing with others. The second is competing with self, set standards. As an individual, we all have concepts of our own self. We set our own standards. And sometimes we feel this is good enough for this. You know, a teacher gives you an assignment and you know that you can perform much, much better on that topic. But because of certain other diversions, other, work that is at hand, or being busy because of various other factors, you feel that this would satisfy, this would give me a grade good enough. Okay, so we have a self-set standard, and these standards keep varying depending upon the priority of the goal that we have. So we need to understand these competition as well, not only motivation, but with whom are we competing, for what sake is a question. So having said this, intrinsic is something internal to us. I need to perform better, even better than what I did last time. We recently had the Olympics. Some of them have probably, Bolt is one who had been improving his record all through, right? Not probably in this Olympic, but wherever he performed, he was going on improving. So whom was he competing with? He was competing with his own self as well, improving his own records. So that's the sort of internal motivation that we have. Sometimes when we get into motivation, we'll understand better. I have a picture to show you what this motivation is that I'm talking about. So extrinsic is everything external. Somebody gives me an award, somebody gives me a pay hike, somebody praises me, or somebody recognizes me, and somebody gives me a promotion, or somebody gifts me something. This is all external, outside. Whereas internal is intrinsic. My inside feelings, feeling of the job well done. I have done it well. I pat myself, nobody pats me. I pride myself that I have been able to accomplish something. A sense of achievement I have, and the passion that I develop. So this is internal. So these two are equally important. But basically, intrinsic has much more value and determines what sort of personality we carry ourselves. As youngsters, you got to distinguish this and probably understand your own self of various activities that you are involved, and correct yourself or plan yourself in a way. So when you have a drive to succeed and motivated by a purpose, a passion, or a mission, that's intrinsic. Pride in your performance, sense of achievement. Okay? So this is what. Is this understood, intrinsic and extrinsic?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Because I'll tell you, in this intrinsic and extrinsic sort of a situation, there is also an example that I could give you, wherein I have given you an assignment to perform. And what you do is, probably feel, just a moment. That slide here. One moment, please. One moment. I am searching for a piece of paper. Okay. You know, basically, what I'm trying to talk about is an assignment is given. And in this particular assignment, there are certain attitudes that are expressed by our own self. Most probably, this we come across very frequently. In the sense, you know, if I plot on x-axis intrinsic sort of in the x-axis, and in the other direction, if I have extrinsic motivation, and on the y-axis, I say positive motivation, and down in the negative axis, I have the negative motivation. In the first quadrant, I say when my assignment is given, I really want to write this report. What is this? I really want to write this report is the attitude of an individual. This is both intrinsic as well as positive motivation. Whereas I'll write this report and you will get a bonus. If I say you write this report and you will get, I'll give you 5 points for this. I will assess this for 5 points. This is, I'm trying to be positive, positively motivate you, but this is an extrinsic motivation. This is in the second quadrant. If I put it in the other sense, write this report or you are fired. So I am also trying to punish you. Not only rewards, but also fear of punishment is a negative motivation. People work because of fear as well. So fear, and this is a negative motivation, and it's an extrinsic. And this is in the third quadrant. And the last and final one is, I really don't want to make this report. This is in the fourth quadrant. Okay? He doesn't want to do it, whatever happens. So this is called, in this motivation, we have a very old theory known as carrot and the stick method. That means to say, you have to, lure people with a carrot in front. Oh, you would have heard the story of the donkey and the fisherman and the washerman. So show a carrot in the front, the donkey goes on moving. Or if it doesn't, you jab it from the back. So the carrot and the stick method. So either you have to give certain gifts or rewards, or you have to punish and create pain. So these are two methods which are very famous from the time we started living together in an organized fashion as a civilization. This method of motivation came into being. But today, we also try to understand the behavior of humans as a different factor. One is the importance of motivation. A motivated person is quality oriented. Motivated individuals are more productive. They always look for a better way of doing jobs. And what are the indications of motivation and demotivation? Who can be considered a motivated worker? When I come to work, wantedly and work willfully, then probably I am interested. When I am at work, I try to give my best. And I have a sense of belonging and pride in the organization that I am working for, and in the improvement of various activities that are happening. So this is an indication. And common indications of not being motivated is absenteeism, and people dropouts, so on and so forth, low output and productivity, accidents taking place, wastage of material everywhere, and there is everybody protesting and rank indiscipline. So I question my boss. I get into altercations with people, frustration and unrest in the workforce, defiant and violent behavior of people. So non-cooperation, strikes, garrows, abusive and violent demonstrations. These are indications of demotivation. People who are not motivated. There is some such trouble that is, or problem that is troubling them. So we have to understand the issues in order to make them more effective, more willfully working with zeal and enthusiasm. Okay, having said this, what are the causes of this? Either underassignment, that means a skilled man being given unskilled work, no, a graduate being asked to get a cup of tea, fetch a cup of tea in the office, overassignment, I do not know how to work, but I am given more responsibility to do. So trying to buckmastership, whatever my boss has, he is just passing on. You do this, you do this. He is just delegating, okay, or relegating his own responsibility. So he passes on the buck and finds fault with me for whatever I do. And coercive supervision, there is always, people watching me, trying to goad me, coercive sort of supervision happening. So if you give them more responsibility, more recognition for their work, and guidance, train them for things that they are required to do, then people are more accepting to take higher responsibilities as well. There is an important experiment that took place sometime in 1927 called the Hawthorne experiments, which was, one of those famous persons, Elton Mayo, came up with this behavioral school of thought. He was a staunch follower of F.W. Taylor, but having faced a difficulty, he was from the Harvard Business School. So the Western Electric, which was one of the most prominent organization that time, employing close to about 29,000 people, and it was for the benefits that it was offering to its employees, the retirement benefits, recreational facilities, housing, and pensionary, so many other things, health and other benefits. It was considered to be one of those good paymasters. But the management was baffled at the dwindling productivity within the organization. They could not understand why productivity was falling so rapidly, and what was troubling people and what was the cause was what they wanted to know. In this context, they have invited researchers from the Harvard Business School to find and tell them what they were supposed to do. And as an outcome, they have performed, the experiments or investigations went on for about 5 years, and they came up with such recommendations, which led to the behavioral school of thought of management. Okay, and Elton Mayo is one of those who contributed to this. Having said this, now let us come to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We have shown you the 5 needs. He says that there is a hierarchy of needs that exists, and basically he says the first level or the lower level needs are the physiological or biological needs. Most of the researchers have recognized needs as one biological, the other one being psychological. But Maslow has felt that there is a hierarchy in this sort of need structure. And we have seen that need structure starting from physiological, security, belongingness, esteem, and self-actualization, right? I showed you this in the last class as well. And when we are talking about the motivation here, we have to realize that Need is an internal desire to be satisfied. And want is a means of fulfilling that particular need. Right? And motive, as we said, is the energy arising from that need, either lacking or wanting of something, leading towards satisfying the need that exists or fulfilling that particular want. And motivation, as we said, is a goal-directed behavior. An incentive is the stimulus. Incentive is the stimulus that can influence the behavior of an individual, right? In this context, we also have to try to know that theories exist, and there are basically theories like the content theories would be studied by you in this course. And these content theories are Maslow's hierarchy of needs and Alderfer's ERG theory. And there is also Herzberg's two-factor theory and McGregor's theory X, theory Y, and also McClelland's acquired needs theory. I would not be dealing with the other theories, but I only touch upon the Maslow's hierarchy of needs because we wish to make use of this to understand what needs are in respect to marketing. Okay? And Maslow theory goes based on two different principles. One, he says, is the deficit principle. What he says is, the other one is the progressive principle, one is the deficit principle. And the deficit principle says, already satisfied needs do not act as motivators. When I am hungry, the physiological need, when I am hungry, I am in need of food. So once my hunger is satisfied, food will not be a motivator for me to work. Okay? So already satisfied needs do not act as motivators. This is deficit. And the progressive principle, he says, is people, we can only progress from one level to the other higher level when the lower level needs are satisfactorily met. Okay? So to some extent, if the lower level needs of food or security are met, then we will move on to the higher level needs. So these are the basic presumptions of Maslow when he was trying to state the needs. So he expects that we as humans progress from the physiological needs to that of the self-actualization needs. Some of the examples are based here. Physiological needs are food, water, warmth, rest, and so on, shelter, and so on. Safety needs are security, safety. Belongingness and love needs are intimate relationships, friendships, belongingness. Esteem needs are prestige and feeling of accomplishment. And self-actualization is achieving one's full potential. Right? I'll share this slide with you all. And self-actualization is mortality, creativity, spontaneity, problem solving, lack of prejudice, acceptance of facts. Let us see this. The self-actualization part is, this is the desire to become everything that one can become. To self-actualize is to become the total kind of a person that one wants to become to reach one's potential. Desire to excel in one's job and successfully manage a unit. And self-esteem is something like, which includes desire for competence, confidence, personal strength, achievement, independence, and probably prestige, recognition, status, and reputation. So job title, merit pay, recognition, challenging works, awards, these are things that go here. Need for compatible work group, peer acceptance, professional friendship are all the belongingness needs. Job security, salary, increase in salary, safe working conditions are all the needs of safety and security needs. So this is about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I would not be going into the other theories of motivation which the other professor, Professor Krishnanand, would be dealing with. But because of my need to inform you about the need hierarchy for marketing, I had to touch upon this. Any questions so far? Hello? Are there any questions? Any interaction points here? Can you speak louder? I am not able to hear you. Yes? Say it again, say it again. Let me ask you one question. What is being dealt in the by Professor Krishnanand right now? What is
Sir,
going on?
Industrial revolution.
Okay, he will come to this aspect called Hawthorne experiments. You would also come to know about F.W. Taylor, who proposed the principles of scientific management.
Sir, we dealt with that, sir.
Pardon?
F.W. Taylor. F.W. Taylor's contribution to industrial era and the scientific management, everything is
Yeah,
dealt,
he
sir.
did. He told you already, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. In that sense, let me also add a few more points. For Taylor, efficiency was God. He could not tolerate any aspects of lethargy, laziness, and inefficiency in all the works that he was associated with. As I also mentioned to you, he was very creative and he could find maths for every work that is being taken up. And he designed the spoon-shaped tennis racket and went on to win the US Open doubles tournament once it first started in 1881 or so, 1891 or 1881. Okay, so he was innovative, he was also creative, and he was also very particular about the way work has to be done. So he thought there is some such sort of standardization that is necessary and also specialization that needs to be created. So he did several experiments, and his belief, he was misguided. He had a wrong concept of human beings. He thought machines would work well as long as they are taken care of. That means when they are lubricated, grease applied, and taken care of, the machines work well. He thought men would also work so well, just like machines. He thought men were machines. As long as they were paid, they would work well. He never considered the concept of the psychological needs. He was only considering the materialistic needs of individuals. In that particular sense, probably Taylor failed to accept the psychological needs of individuals. So he was considered to be very, very harsh in his activities or in his scientific principles. And you should also realize that there was a big, in the industrial sector, there was a revolution, not only industrial revolution, but there was a commotion opposing Taylorism. And the US government had to constitute a committee to find out what this Taylorism is all about. And it has abandoned the stopwatch system. Because Taylor started using stopwatch to measure the work done by the people. So the stopwatch system, people thought they were made to work hard. They never realized that Taylor was trying to find out the pausing time, the time to pause, because of the type of work that people were doing. He recognized that there was some such sort of rest that people require during the course of action or work. So he also thought every person, you cannot use the same tool for every activity, a same shovel for every, either for the iron ore or for the coal. If you are using the same shovel, the load of shovel, the weight of the shovel the material in the shovel can vary. So that imposes fatigue in the people. So he was trying to reduce fatigue and be more organized with respect to the work assigned to people. And he also believed that people should be trained. So in that particular sense, when he had a misconception about people, the problem with Western Electric came up. People believed that they are giving all the things, pensionary benefits, best of pay, and recreational facilities. And it's one of the premier organization as far as the lookout for the employees is concerned, the care for the employees is concerned. But still, productivity was dwindling. The question was, the experimenters went on with the presumptions of Taylor's scientific principles. Okay, they thought the external features were probably the cause of reduction in productivity, like the noise, like the illumination, like the work environment, and so on and so forth. So the time pauses and the type of time duration and so on. So the first experiment they conducted was an illumination experiment, wherein they took two groups. One was a controlled group. That means to say the parameters were being varied, whereas the other one was an uncontrolled group. So that was a reference group where there was no change, but they were being observed. So they were conducting this experiment. So they increased the illumination. As they increased the illumination, productivity increased. So they found that not only with the control group, the uncontrolled group where there was no increase in illumination, productivity also increased there. Then they started reducing the illumination. So once they started reducing the illumination, the productivity was also going up. So they reduced the illumination to that level of that of moonlight, where people started complaining that they are not able to see and work. But till that time, the productivity was rising, not only with the control group, but also with the uncontrolled group, the reference group. What do we infer from this?
People need more than what they want. Actually, there is difference between need and want.
It's not about the need and want, it is the basic objective. The belief that illumination had an effect on productivity. Illumination may have some effect on productivity, but illumination alone is not the main cause of improvement or reduction in productivity, is the final conclusion, right? There are some more important factors that have been influencing the productivity. Despite illumination being reduced, not only for the control group, the uncontrolled group which had the normal light, they also increased the productivity. How? How come? The feeling of being observed. We behave in a different way when we are being observed. This is called Hawthorne effect. Okay? You consider yourself when you are taking an examination in the examination hall and the invigilators are moving around and an invigilator comes to your table and stands there. How do you feel? How do you feel?
As if I am cheating, like.
No, you have a different feeling. You are all too sudden irritated,
Tensed.
trying to understand why is he standing here? Does he feel that I am cheating? And you are not on your own. You act like as if you are writing, even if you are thinking, the invigilator might think that you do not know the answers for the questions. So you would act in a different way. Immediately you put your pen on your paper and start doing something. So this is all. So when we behave normally when we know that we are all alone in our room, in our own way. But when the doors are open, when we are open to others, our behavior is something different. So what is controlling us? The environment is controlling. Others are controlling, right? So the realization is here, there is something much more important than illumination that matters. And this behavior is something psychological, not physiological. Am I right? Am I understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So we are expecting that there are certain psychological reasons that go on. So to assess the psychological things, they had to perform several such experiments. I think it is a very interesting investigation. I leave it to Professor Krishnanand to deal with this. I don't want to meddle with it in such a short span of few minutes. It takes a long time to explain as well. You should hold yourself in suspense to see that. Okay, it's a very interesting experiment which he would also narrate. Okay. And that actually led to this school of thought on behavioral science. Okay? Yeah. Any questions? Any questions on what we have been talking? Today, you had no problem with your link, right?
No, sir. No problem.
Okay. Good. I believe the class representative was mentioning that Friday, instead of 8 o'clock, we would have our class from 8:30. Is that what you all desire?
Yes, sir. Better for some students.
Yeah, some people have some difficulties, I am told. Okay. Okay, we'll try to schedule that way from the next class onwards. Okay. So if you have no questions, that's all for now. Take care.
Thank you.